proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City to the sleeping and empty small cities and towns of upstate, which once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
All right, guys, welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and I'm here in the WYSL studio with Bob Savage.
Howdy doodles.
So I want to welcome you guys all to the show. It is the last working day of the week, I guess, you know, depending on when you work. It is Friday.
For some of us.
Yep. I'll be doing a bunch of work over the weekend, so it's not really the last working day of the week for me, but very excited that the weekend is going to be here shortly anyways. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in New York State. There always seems to be. You know, I feel like every time I come on the show, I say something along the lines of, there's a lot to talk about today. And today it feels like there is yet again just a lot to talk about. So with that being said, we're going to start off with New York State just isn't happy being ranked 50th for freedom.
Oh, no.
Not happy about it, you know. And I think that the state legislators like, yeah, 50's not good enough. Got to pump those numbers. We got to find a way to be even worse.
Well, Barack said there's 57 states, so we can go lower than this.
I guess so. So this one is interesting to me because this type of legislation, I think when people see it, they think, that's not so bad. That's an okay idea. I could get behind that. And they don't really understand the implications, or maybe they do, but it's not till later, till after they've kind of said, oh, yeah, maybe that's not a bad idea. So in New York State, the state legislature is now looking at making it illegal to walk while checking your phone.
Yeah, walking and texting. Yep. Yeah.
Now, it does seem that's specific to crosswalks. And this is where I get concerned that people go, well, you shouldn't be checking your phone while going across a crosswalk, so maybe this is okay.
Okay, I haven't read the law. So what you're saying is if you jaywalk, it's okay to text? I mean, what?
That's a good question. I guess I don't know if it's that specific, but I would be willing to bet that they haven't looked at it properly enough to figure out if that's actually the case. It's entirely possible that they didn't check on that, and it might be it may be legal based on this law. It hasn't passed yet. The law has not yet passed. So I guess, but it would be very interesting, concerning, and probably upsetting to a bunch of people to find out that it's perfectly legal to jaywalk while texting on your phone or checking your phone or doing whatever with your phone, but that it would not be legal if you were in the crosswalk, especially when you've got the little symbol, you know, that shows it's okay to walk. And much to my expected fear, I saw some people already interviewed by the news who said, well, I drive a car and I don't like it when people check their phones in the crosswalk. If I hit them, I might be responsible, so I support this law. And I expected
I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, I really expected that to be the response. So I guess I say all that to just say, guys, you can't legislate responsibility. You can't legislate common sense. It is not the government's job to protect people from doing stupid things. So here's the thing. It's a question of how is this going to be enforced? How do you do any type of equal enforcement of this?
I guarantee you police everywhere are rolling their eyes about this.
Yeah. I mean,
like, we really have time to
exactly.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. So to me, it's just a mess all over. I can't imagine at all how they're going to enforce this. The fines start at $50 for your first offense, $100 for your second, and then they cap it at $150. So, where they come up with these arbitrary numbers. But guys, please don't forget that it won't end there, because New York State's got that nice, was it $110, $130 surcharge or something like that.
So this is about revenue.
Yeah. So this is just really a money grab. It's a money grab. New York State is really good at taking people's money. They've got that figured out. Highest taxed in the nation, hands down. New York State knows how to take people's money. Before you even get to the fees and fines and penalties and Yep. No, they've got that figured out 100%. So that's the first thing to talk about today, guys. New York State is now looking at banning walking and texting. Yeah, for what it's worth, my default mode when it comes to new legislation of any type is I hate it. Sure. But before you even tell me what it is or what it's about, I hate it. Yeah. And then now you have the affirmative burden of convincing me that this is necessary and it's a good idea. Too many laws. Too many laws, too much government. It's ridiculous. It is. And, somebody proposed something, this was a while ago. Many people have proposed this. I don't know how many of them were actually candidates running for office under this proposal. But the idea that for every new bit of legislation you write, it has to include a repeal of 2 other pieces of legislation. Or 6. And, yeah, I mean, you could go at 6, and I bet you 10 years from now, we'd still have more legislation than we should. But this whole idea of there is so much legislation, especially in New York, and not just state legislation, but then you've got county legislation, municipal legislation, you've got zoning and codes and all this. Nobody can walk around and actually know if they're breaking the law, if they're abiding by the law. There's goofy, weird things on the books. If you look at City of Rochester code all by itself, it's 1,300 pages. The stack is like this tall. I actually got 1,300 pages and stacked out, and that's a lot. Who reads that? Who knows? You don't know when you're breaking the law until someday you step out of line just enough, or somebody doesn't like you just enough, and then they pin you with something that hasn't been enforced for 50 plus years that's just on the books just in case. And there's a lot of stuff that needs to be, rescinded or revoked that just stays on the books because nobody gets around to revoking it. Yep. I know that for many years there was a law in Philadelphia where it was illegal to drive a car unless you were preceded by a distance of about 50 yards by a guy with a lantern and a bell to warn approaching horses. Yeah. So you didn't spook the horse with your horseless carriage. There used to be, I don't know if it was on the back of Cheerios or Captain Crunch, some kids' breakfast cereal, just goofy laws that were still on the books. And I remember, and there's actually a game too. There's some board game that's got something similar, and I remember goofy stuff like you can't have ice cream in your pocket on Sundays. Yeah. You can't fish off the back of a giraffe. Just weird, totally inapplicable laws. But also, in the example of both of those laws, who's the victim of this crime? What does that impact have on society? Why was it ever on the books to begin with? And that's something that I often try to ask people, because sometimes legislation comes up that people think, oh, that's common sense. I literally had a candidate last night talking about common sense legislation. And the thing I always had to ask people is, should government be involved in this? Government has really one purpose, and that's to protect the rights of the individual. So, defend the Constitution. Yeah, absolutely. So if you have that and you're proposing something, you got to ask, is this something government should really be involved in? And I think the majority of the time, the overwhelming majority, the answer is no.
No freaking
the answer
way.
is no.
Yep.
But yet they do it anyways. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me here on Radio Free New York. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in a moment.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
You're listening to Radio Free New York
on the WYSL stations.
Well, Andrew, you know, it's illegal in Kansas to hit a vending machine that stole your money. In Louisiana, it's a $500 fine to instruct a pizza delivery man to deliver a pizza to your friend without them knowing. In Indiana, no one may catch a fish with his or her bare hands. There's the ice cream in your pocket one in Georgia.
There you go.
In Florida, it's illegal to have sexual relations with a porcupine.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
that was on my list.
It's. Oh, jeez, I wonder who wrote that law and where did that come from?
This is one that could have been dreamed up in New York, but it's in Connecticut. It's illegal for a barber to hum a tune while cutting your hair.
There you go. You know, I actually heard, and this is kind of unrelated, but related to that. Apparently now with Uber, you can pay extra for your driver to not talk to you. Like when you request your Uber ride, you can pay like an extra $1 or $2 for the driver to not talk to you, which is really interesting. Yeah, somebody was telling me about that the other day. I'm like, oh, okay.
Can't you just ask them to shut up?
Probably, but now you can pay for it, I guess, which is kind of weird because I wonder if it notifies the driver, like while they're driving, all of a sudden their phone pops up and it's like, hey, you were just paid to not talk. Like, stop it.
Well, how else would he know?
I don't know. It's got to be like really awkward and strange.
Built into the system.
Yeah.
I find the Uber drivers very entertaining. I don't have a problem with chatting with them.
Yeah, no, they're usually great, especially if you're like out of the area, you're somewhere, and they'll tell you where all the good places to eat are and things like that. I haven't had a bad experience, but clearly there was a need for it. The market demanded it, and Uber brought it along. So it's pretty interesting.
I got talking about the IPO for Uber with one of the Uber drivers in New York City, and I had the misfortune of informing him that his company had lost $9 billion.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good. So we were just talking about in the first segment, New York trying to make themselves even less free, creating new laws. You can't walk and check your phone anymore. Well, not quite yet, but it'll probably pass.
Oh, look, it's illegal to read about dumb laws on the radio. Uh-oh.
Yeah, oh man, we're in trouble again. That's so. Those of you who are on the live stream now, I'm going to apologize to those of you guys who are on Facebook. For whatever reason, the streaming software, it picked up. It sent us out to YouTube, sent us out to Twitter. Facebook, I think, must have changed a setting in the last couple of days, and so I had to tweak things. You guys probably missed the first few minutes. I apologize, but if you want to catch them, you can always go to the YouTube station after this, and you can catch the first 7 minutes of the show that you guys missed out on. But thank you guys so much for joining here.
So and, we're up and running on all platforms now.
We're back up and running. Yep, absolutely. And Yolanda actually commented in saying that Balderdash is the board game where you've got like some of those bad, crazy, wacky laws in there. So if you guys are looking for some fun, you want to find some laws that are just absolutely ridiculous, check out Balderdash. I don't know who makes it. They didn't sponsor the show, whoever they are. It's just fun. So, so kind of along the lines of this, just a little bit, I actually got a message the other day from somebody who they kind of dabble in politics just a little bit. They pay attention just enough to ask questions. And they sent me a message. They were extremely, extremely concerned about school safety. Now, this person doesn't have kids yet, but I wonder maybe they're thinking about having kids right now, and just seeing what's gone on in the last few years, especially with school shootings, and sent me an extremely concerned Facebook message just saying, I don't understand why we can't protect our schools. Can't we just take money and, put metal detectors in the schools? And she's like, everybody's so worried about this wall. Why can't we take funding from the wall and put that into protecting the schools? And kind of this really long, very concerned message. And I thought it was a conversation worth discussing on the air, especially with everybody here, to kind of hear, I guess, about what my approach to the situation is. And I'd love to hear your guys' approach as well. So definitely comment in, call into the show. But the first thing that I want to just identify and throw out there, and I think everybody knows, is that school safety is becoming a concern for a lot of people. It really is, especially if you're a parent, or even just somebody who's concerned about kids in general. For a long time, schools were thought of as a haven, as a safe place. Even when there's like natural disasters, what happens? The school gets open. You go there for supplies, for shelter, that sort of thing. So the idea that this place that would be considered in society normally a safe haven no longer feels that way to people, I can totally understand and definitely understand why it's a growing concern for people. I will say, though, I went to a city school. I grew up in the city of Rochester. We had metal detectors. They still have metal detectors. In fact, they've got like airport X-ray scanners now. I mean, it's crazy. You can't even get into a city school anymore without going through like who knows how much radiation. And I'll tell you what, when I went to high school, kids still brought guns to school. Kids brought knives to school.
How did they get in past the scanners?
Well, I don't want to share all the secrets on the radio, but a lot of times the way it happens for schools is not every child gets scanned. So they'll pick a random number of the day, every third student or every fifth student or every second. It changes every day, might change on the hour, that sort of thing. If you're a guest to the school, you'll probably always get scanned. But then there's other things too, like they don't do the best job searching bags. People would open their bags. Oh, that looks, relatively good enough. Knives were probably the easiest thing for kids to get into schools. They would just stick them like the blades between books and folders, whatever. But it was a pretty common thing, and they definitely kept that sort of stuff out of the news. But it wasn't unknown amongst the students what was going on, for sure. And so I say that to say, this idea of putting metal detectors in a school, guess what? If somebody wants to do it, they're going to figure out how. They will. That's like anything that happens. And there's actually some local schools in the area. I want to say might be Fairport. They've invested in replacing all their windows with bulletproof glass. And just and I had a parent, come and complain to me about this and say, hey, the school's going to spend whatever millions of dollars replacing all the glass in the school with these bulletproof windows. And what happens when my kid just walks outside to get on the bus, and all the kids are outside of the school in the front? He's like, if I was trying to cause damage, I would just wait for everybody to come out at dismissal and then do something. Like, why are we spending
Has there been a case of anybody getting shot through a window? I'm not aware of one.
Not any that I've heard of. So it feels like maybe one of those knee-jerk reactions. There's not really any evidence to suggest that this is necessary. But what this does show is that people are truly concerned about this, to the point where they're going to spend all this money to maybe put in ineffective controls to keep schools safe, when schools not that long ago, students used to come to schools with guns to go hunting afterwards.
Yeah, it was very common.
Nobody was killed.
Not only was nobody killed, there were not even any accidental discharges. And I remember the teachers being out during lunch hour, out in the parking lot with some of the kids. Some of the teachers were hunters. Sure. And this is the first day of deer season we're talking about. Yeah. Deer gun season. Mm-hmm. And they would be out there, comparing shotguns. Oh, yeah, look at us. They would be
the cool new toy
sighting down the barrel. Mm-hmm. And, it was, nobody even thought about it.
Schools used to have rifle leagues. I mean, you used to have shooting and gun safety in some schools. Now, not all
schools,
up
any yearbook until about 1975 and look at the shooting club.
Yeah. And so I bring all of this up to say that the issue is not going to be firearms, because the next question that constantly comes is, well, should we have armed police in schools? Should teachers be required to carry guns in schools? Like this whole thing, permitted to, and that's something I actually am going to address, because I do believe that there are some things we can do to make schools better, and probably so the long-term fix I'll probably cover in the next segment. But what I will tell you in terms of armed security and armed teachers, I know this puts people off. I know some people are extremely uncomfortable with this. I know some teachers are extremely uncomfortable with this. So here's my point of view on it. Take it however you want to take it. But my point of view is this: armed security, if you put them in place, just like students have figured out how to get around the metal detectors, how to get around and everything else, how to sneak out of the house, how to do, everything that kids do to get around authority, that'll get figured out too. And if somebody truly wants to cause damage and they know that there's armed security there, who's the first person to get shot? The armed security guy. That's what's going to happen. Now, what if we allowed teachers who wanted to, only those who wanted to, what if we offered them training and allowed them to be armed in school?
Certification program,
yep. But nobody knows who those teachers are except for the principal, and it's concealed. So the students don't know what teachers have firearms, if any. Only the principal does. Maybe even the other teachers don't know unless they were part of the certification course. That's it. What's that mean? Wow, now it's really risky to try to do something bad in a school, because you don't know if one teacher is armed or 500 teachers are armed.
That's right.
You don't know which teachers are armed. That, to me, is the best answer. And you don't know, because that school maybe nobody opted in. But guess what? You don't know. Now it's a risk. You can't predict for that. You can't try to get around that. That actually, to me, is way more effective than millions of dollars on bulletproof glass.
Yes, and a cheap expedient also are signs posted outside instead of the dopey, this is a drug-free school zone and all that stuff, which has no impact on anyone.
Yep.
It's just a waste of money. You should, there just should be a simple and an obvious sign posted, in several points around the school property. Teachers and school personnel are armed at this facility.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's a really simple, cost-effective, because airport scanners are not cheap. All of that equipment is very, very expensive.
They're only as good as the operator.
Yeah. Whereas if you allowed teachers, and like I said, specifically the teachers that want to, and I had one teacher who told me who's very opposed to firearms and never wants to own one, and that's fine. They said, I never want to carry a gun in school. I'm not comfortable with that. I said, you never have to. Nobody would force you to. But somebody else cares about those kids and is comfortable with it and would feel absolutely terrible if they weren't given the chance to protect those kids. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on Radio Free New York. We are going to take a short break here, and then we'll talk about the long-term solution to school shootings.
You're listening to the voice of liberty.
WYSL.
AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, FM 95.5 Spencerport, and WYSL1040.com everywhere.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Aircraft Environmental Systems proudly supports Radio Free New York. Rochester-based leaders in climate simulation chambers for America's R&D laboratories. We're experts in troubleshooting, calibrations, custom designs, and consulting for more than 40 years. Industry pioneers, we created the first ever fleet of temperature, humidity, and altitude test chambers available to rent coast to coast. Trained and trusted by environmental chamber manufacturers, we are ACES. Find us at acesinc.com.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Radio Free New York on WYSL. AM 1040, FM 92.1, and FM 95.5 West.
All right, guys. We are back here on Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We're talking about school shootings and talking about what we could actually do to prevent school shootings, because I received a message during the week from somebody who's really, really concerned about school shootings and wanted to know, like, what can we do to really work on this issue? And, you know, so in the last segment, we kind of talked about some short-term stuff, which is allowing teachers to opt in to having a concealed carry firearm with training, of course, you know, in a school where nobody else in the school would even know that somebody has a firearm. It could be one teacher, it could be multiple teachers. The only person that would know would be the principal. And that alone would already make a much larger impact, in my opinion, than things like metal detectors, which I had when I went to high school. I was a student in an inner city high school. We had metal detectors. Weapons still made their way into the school one way or another. It proved to be fairly ineffective, costly, and ineffective. So that's kind of a short-term thing. But I want to talk about a long-term solution. We talked about in the last segment, we talked about the idea that there didn't used to be this problem before in society. You could have students who brought their rifles to school to go hunting after school, or maybe they went hunting before school, depending on, what that particular student was doing. And there were guns at the schools. Sometimes the teachers had them. Sometimes the students had them. Nobody got shot. They used to have rifle clubs. Actually, there is, I think in the Holly School District, I believe they have an air rifle league now.
Oh, there's actually quite a few schools that still have rifle clubs or shooting clubs, gun clubs.
Yeah. So it's actually starting to come back a little bit. I know they had to fight quite a bit to get that in there. So I bring all of this up to say the very first thing that we need to do if we want to actually fix this issue, not, virtue signal with legislation that's not going to work, not virtue signal by spending a bunch of money that we know is going to be ineffective. Now, if we actually want to resolve the issue, we need to get it so kids don't want to kill each other. I mean, that is the root of the issue, because if it wasn't the root of the issue, we would have had issues back in the 70s when kids had firearms at school. And that's not the case today. And that wasn't the case then. So the issue is really students wanting to kill their peers or students wanting to kill themselves. And what you're seeing a lot, if you go into, I think it was Google. If you know how when you type a search and Google starts to autofill stuff, if you type in something like, I think it's why does school and why does school make me, I think is what was. Yeah, here we go. So if you type into Google, why does school make me, the first few autocompletes are sad, tired, cry, anxious, so anxious, depressed, and the list keeps going on and on. So it's not, why does school make me better in life? Why does school make me successful? Why does school make me happy? No, the commonly searched things on Google right now are, why does school make me sad? Why does it make me tired? Why does it make me
all
cry?
negative?
Yeah, it's all bad stuff.
Is that partly because of the algorithm they're using? Or?
So their algorithm suggests what's being searched for the most. So yeah, absolutely. That's why
strictly quantitative then.
Yeah, that's what's happening. So it's suggesting what people are commonly searching. So that's why I guess that's important to bring up. That's why it's so important that this is what's being auto-completed, because what's being auto-completed is what people are searching most frequently. So that's an issue. That's an issue, because if students are constantly searching, why does school make me sad? Why does school make me anxious? Why does school make me cry? Tired. Tired. I think school makes everybody tired. I don't think anybody goes, wow, after this day of school, I'm just so energized. I'm ready to take on the world. But this other stuff, it's really concerning. And what we really have to look at is, why is that? And so there's three things that we talk about very often that leave students, especially in school, feeling like they want to commit suicide. I mean, that's what these public school shootings typically are. In almost every single case is a public suicide, them trying to go out with a bang and them trying to take the students with them that made them feel bad.
It's a complex issue. It's one that we have to devote a lot of time, I think, and resources and energy and research to try to get to the bottom of, because there's a lot of different motivators there. And of course, we can't negate these psychotropic drugs, which are extremely powerful, and I think in many cases not very well understood even by the manufacturers or the prescribing physicians, making the assumption that these kids are on drugs legally. But there's a lot of that out there, from Adderall to Ritalin to we're all familiar with how these kids get these drugs. In some cases, much more powerful, and it's absolutely critical that they be monitored to make sure that the dose is correct, that they're not haven't just abruptly stopped taking the meds. I mean, any number of these cases, you can look at the fact patterns, and you can find these kids were not taking the drugs properly, or maybe because of bad parenting or bad home situations, nobody was monitoring what they were doing, and it just leads to these psychotic breaks. That's one thing I know was not the case back when I was in school and kids were bringing shotguns to school for the first day of deer.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a single school shooting, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but I am not aware of a single school shooting that happened where there wasn't some sort of psychotropic drug involved. So that is definitely one commonality. There's three other commonalities that I've really noticed. Larry Sharp, when he was running for governor, he talked about this all the time. The idea that these students have a lack of purpose, they have a lack of community, and they have loneliness combined with these psychotropic drugs.
Well, yeah, and then there's all these other things that come in. I mean, it's been, it's been discussed on talk shows ad nauseum, but I mean, social media and the fact that bullying can take place 24/7, that's very stressful. And then the violence, which is endemic to pop culture that's out there, even the pop songs on the top 40 stations are singing in many cases about violence and violent neighborhoods, and then the permissive parenting, I think, is a huge problem.
Sure. Yeah.
A lot of causes going on.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that stuff is going to fall in those three categories. I mean, if you have lack of purpose, right, you have nothing to really look forward to. So you start losing hope. And your responsibility as a young adult has been taken away. I don't care what anybody says. You're 16 years old. You're a young adult. That's my opinion. You're getting into there at 16 years old. You are supposed to be taking on responsibility, and by and large, society's taken that away from people. They've essentially said, "Oh, 16, no, don't start working now. You have all this school to prepare for." Whereas I grew up personally, I already had my first two jobs by the time I was 16 years old.
It's so important.
Purpose.
And it's not just about money. I mean, we understand that the kids aren't going to earn a lot of money and that they could maybe get it more efficiently from other, family members or whatever. But it's so important to have those relationships, to be tasked with doing things that you may not be inclined to do, to work as part of a team, to take orders, to be respectful, to interact with people in the public. It's so beneficial. I think all kids should have a job before they leave high school. A lot of kids your show that we were talking about this where
they don't start their first job till they're 26.
26, yeah. Right.
Yep, yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. And the thing there is, especially with purpose, even if you have a job at a young age that you don't like, you learn some amazing things that carry you through life.
You gotta work with people you don't like.
Yeah. Like first and foremost, what it means to have a job, what it means for somebody to depend on you, to show up at 9 o'clock when 9 o'clock is the start time. Things that give you purpose. You start realizing other people rely on you, and then it kind of ties into that lack of community too. With social media, just like you talked about, you would think people would have a deeper sense of community because they're so connected to everybody online, but it's actually the exact opposite. People are much less connected. They feel as if they have no community whatsoever. So maybe you have some community at school, but maybe you don't. If you don't, having a job or something like that, maybe you volunteer somewhere, maybe it's not even a paid thing, you start to get that sense of community. And then the last piece, loneliness. I mean, we talked about usually as something at home, right? And it could tie into school as well, but a lot of times you see with these students some sort of problem at home. So they go home, they didn't have community at school, they don't have community online, they go home, they're lonely. Maybe it's a single parent household, or maybe it's a household where both parents have to work extreme hours, they're not around, maybe there's no siblings around. This is like a repetitive, reoccurring issue. So these students, they have no purpose, they have no community, all they have is loneliness. And what do? They have no reason to stay around. But what they see day in and day out is, oh, hey, there's somebody just like me on the news. They went out shooting everybody. And look, now they have all these people are paying attention to them. yeah, maybe it doesn't make sense to stick around. And that what I see as a common, and this is kind of generally speaking, right? This isn't like every specific case is going to fit in this cookie cutter box, but I see the media constantly glorifying these school shooters and putting them up there as celebrities. And of course they say bad things about them, but for somebody who's lonely with no community and no purpose, they see that as, oh, that's one person, they made it. And it's a big issue.
Yeah, there's one value that's been inculcated in these kids. They all, well, I can't say all, but a vast majority of them really gravitate towards fame. It's very important to be famous. You ask a kid 15, 16, 17 years old, what do you want to be? Well, I want to be famous.
Yeah.
And that's been going on for some time now. I don't know if that's a product of this narcissistic kind of notion that's put in their heads that you're special just because you exist.
Yeah.
No, you're special because of your accomplishments.
Yeah.
Which is why that's why these revisions to the SAT. You've read about that? What's going on there?
I haven't seen
let's talk about that after the break.
Okay. Yeah.
This is a mind blower.
All right, there we go. So, guys, we're going to take another break here on Radio Free New York, and when we come back, I guess we're going to talk about some SAT score
just
modifications.
A quick thing's been in the news. It is Radio Free New York on this quality radio station. Let them know you listen, please.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating.
Wilco.
For a free consultation at 585.
You're welcome.
003182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
I'm Las from Action Towing and Service. The people really make this place incredible. I feel at home. I love what I do. I love the people that I work with. The owner of the business is actively involved. He is a veteran. We have a very close relationship with all of the staff. Every employee there is known by name, and we really, really work hard on giving that home feel or the family feel. Please give us an opportunity to win your business. Come down and visit us at 275 Marketplace Drive, right off of Jefferson Road.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York on the WYSL stations.
All right, guys, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I want to welcome all of you guys who are on the live stream. I totally forgot to do that. So welcome to Yolana, Jess, Dan, Michael, Barbara, Robert, Tony, Aniko, Dan, Carrie, and a whole bunch more of you guys. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. I'm sorry, I'm just checking the comments too. But Nate says it's a cultural issue. We've lost our values as a society. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, one of the big issues with school shootings in general is society through social media, through just regular mainstream media and desensitization, we've lost the value of human life, and we've lost that in many areas across the board. And then Barbara chimed in here too, saying that it's public suicide. It's one grand way to finally be heard and not be ignored, and that's absolutely correct. I mean, that is what these children are doing. And something Bob actually brought up at the end of this last segment before the break is that everything's about fame. And I actually had a conversation with a high school teacher who, I'm not sure for how long she's been a teacher, but, long enough. She was a teacher when I was in high school. So, and she said that before, when they would talk to students and talk about what they want to be when they grow up, they would get a lot of pro basketball player, pro football player, some high level position in the field that the student wanted to be. And what she said is now they all say they want to be YouTube stars. They want to be Instagram influencers, and that they're constantly walking around with their phones trying to record everything they can so they can make it on YouTube or make it on Instagram. And really it just shows, like, it lines up perfectly with what you were saying, that, that's what culture is pushing for. And here's the thing, guys, not everybody can be famous. If everybody was famous, nobody would be famous.
Well, the thing is, it's kind of like wanting to be rich. You said, when I grow up, I want to be rich. I want to be famous. Mm-hmm. Fame and riches are not something that you can, they're not, that's not a goal that you can achieve directly. No. Fame and riches come as a byproduct of excellence in achievement in some field of endeavor. Yeah. So you're a great basketball player, if you're one of the best, you become an NBA star, and so forth. And there's nobody that's gotten rich or famous. First of all, I think you got to be nuts to want to be famous, frankly, but that's just me. But nobody got any of these things unless they worked their butt to the bone. Mm-hmm. That's almost always the case with any of these folks. Yeah. So if we were to wrap up, and I know this is kind of expanded over, multiple segments of the show here, but if we were to wrap up this conversation about school shootings, I mean, I would say turning schools into jails and prisons, because that's basically what everybody's trying to do, between the bulletproof glass, the security scanners, all this other stuff. You're just turning a school into a jail or a prison. That's not solving the problem. We've got to address the root of the issue, address the happiness of children in schools, address their relationship issues, address their lack of purpose, address their loneliness, address the parenting. Like, and this is like a societal thing. This isn't something that we're going to be able to legislate. This is something that, as a society, everybody is going to have to work together. Government, I don't see any way government can step in and fix this issue. And to be honest, I don't know that's government's place to step in and fix this issue. This is something that we need to take up, each of us individually in our community, be a beacon of light for these kids and these families, and, work on helping them out. That's the best thing I can say there. Well, anything having to do with values or behavior or socialization is not the province of government. Yeah. That's stuff that has to come from the home. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the SATs. Yeah, let's hear about this. So SATs, the College Entrance Examination Board, the time-honored, organization that has come up with all these tests as a means of a metric to apply to school achievement. That's what it was originally supposed to be, and it was originally conceived as something that was completely blind to all factors other than achievement. In other words, they didn't care about gender. They didn't care about, ethnicity, or anything else. Well, they've come up with a wonderful new concept called the adversity score. And so what they do is now, and they're rolling this out, and it's going to be fully implemented, I think, by 2021, is they're going to consider all kinds of factors in the student's, background. So, for example, if your father's an alcoholic, if you came from a family of criminals or miscreants of some sort, your mom's a hooker, you're a member of a victims group, you're a lesbian, gay, bisexual, you're a member of a minority group or whatever. And so they're going to apply this adversity score to you. And you don't get to know what the score is. The score is only shared with the colleges where you apply.
Interesting. Yeah.
Is this a terrible idea or what?
So this sounds like they're going to create like a handicap score, essentially, or something like that. Like, based on your background, you get extra points or less points, maybe, depending on your social upbringing, instead of like quantifiable metrics based on the results.
Right. It's everything but achievement.
Yeah.
Basically this is another scheme of redistribution, because basically what you're doing is you're discounting the real accomplishments of other students in favor of somebody who has, and of course these credentials are so susceptible of being faked.
Sure. Yeah.
Have we not learned this from the most recent college entrance scandals?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. So the first thing I think of, when you mention that is, I bet you somebody's going to try to put together a government program for funding based on those metrics.
Oh, of course.
And that's how it's going to be used. And I recall in high school, there was this class we took. It was called Theory of Knowledge. And it's really interesting. It kind of talked about, like, are moral things moral because they're moral, or because society creates what morals are? Like some of that deep type of thinking. And one day, and I was certainly the minority at Wilson Magnet High School on Genesee Street in the city. And one day the discussion came up about affirmative action. And now I will never personally participate in affirmative action because I don't qualify. And the class was split, and it was really interesting hearing both sides of the story, because there were students, African-American students, who stood up and said, I absolutely hate affirmative action. And you had other African-American students and minority students who said, no, I love it. It's great. We get free stuff. And so when the students who stood up and said they were totally opposed to it were asked, why do you oppose getting this free stuff? The response was absolutely amazing. What they said was, because I'm being given something based on the color of my skin, not how hard I work.
That's right, exactly.
And they said, I don't want to be admitted to some school because I checked a box that says I'm black. They said, I want to be admitted into this school because I worked hard, my achievements paid off, and I want that to be recognized. They said, I feel like it's oppression. If I'm just getting in because of the color of my skin, how's that any different than Jim Crow?
Yeah, well, it is Jim Crow, and not only that. Let's look. Come on, let's look down the line here. What are the implications of this? So now an employer takes a look at a kid who has graduated, who has the degree, seems to have the grades. He's going to look at this kid, and based upon the color of his skin, or based upon his sexual orientation, or based on any one of these other factors we talked about, he's going to say, yeah, is this another one of these adversity score cases? Mm-hmm. Is this guy real, or maybe I better not?
Yeah.
So basically what you're doing is you're taking SATs, and schools, just for you folks out there who have kids who are heading for high school, the SAT is decreasing in influence rapidly.
Interesting. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, scores of all kinds are.
Yeah,
grades.
Well, it kind of doesn't surprise me, because standardized testing, although it measures some things, it doesn't account for students that aren't good at test taking. It doesn't actually, a lot of times, account for anything that you actually really know, because you can cheat a test. You can just cram in advance.
Have somebody else take it for you.
Yeah, there's so many things. So it doesn't surprise me at all that a lot of standardized testing is becoming devalued. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us here on Radio Free New York. I will catch you guys on Monday.
Make you want fun.
34 years in business, over 60,000 vehicles sold. That's right. It's Patrick Dewitt GMC in Henrietta. Shop us.